In this episode, we are looking at a really fun project. We are going to create a hamburger menu in react.js using React Router and GSAP. So I've built a little tiny website that really doesn't do anything. The only thing it does is just have this little menu button, and when we click on the menu, it gives us our hamburger menu or navigation. So this is a really cool navigation. You can see that the animation was really cool when it came down. I'll do that one more time. And we have 3 pages we can go to, which is opportunity, solution, contact us, and there's like a little blurb. So Hamburg is a agency I just made up, but this is just a really cool menu. And if we go to the locations and hover on them, we can see the background changes to the different locations we are located in. And so when we hover on Austin, we get this one. When we go to New York, San Francisco, and Beijing. So you get the idea. And if we click solutions, it takes us to the solutions page, so solutions that help you. And we are using React Router, like I mentioned, so everything does work. If we go back home, it takes us back to the home page and our menu still opens. One thing I do want to note is you can't necessarily spam the menu. So the menu becomes disabled for just until the animations are done, so about like 1.2 seconds, and then it becomes enabled again for you to click it. So if you're excited about this project, let's go ahead and dive into it. You are going to need to follow along pretty close here because it gets a little tricky. So if you're ready, what I want you to do is go ahead and go to the repo down below. And I have a master branch with the completed project and a starter branch. Go ahead and clone to get the starter branch. In the starter branch, it includes some starter files and the images we'll be using for our cities, which is these right here. So if you're excited, let's go ahead and get started with the code. Go and grab the repo, do npm install, and then open up the project. And in the next screen, we will talk about the project files and then start coding the menu out. So I've already cloned the project, and if we run npm run start, we can see we have we're in the localhost 3001, but it'll be 3000 for you. I just have another port open. So if we open up the project, we see that we have the home screen. And if we go to our other pages, so solutions, we can see we go to the solutions page. And then if we go to contact, is it contact-us? Yeah, we'll go to the contact page. I didn't necessarily want to spend time setting up React Router. I just wanted to really focus on the menus. So that's why if we go back to our app.js, you can see React Router is kind of already set up. So we've got our switches and we've got our routes here. And then these routes are pointing to these components down here. I didn't create additional components. So these components are the opportunities page, solutions page, contact page, and the home page. If we jump into our components, we have a hamburger.js and a header.js. Nothing's in there yet, but our header.js will have our logo and the hamburger menu. I wouldn't say it's a hamburger menu, it's going to just say menu. And then in our hamburger.js, this is where our entire navigation will live and all its animations. I am using Sass, so in our Sass file, we are importing the Poppins font, just setting some colors, and then the HTML and body setting the font family to Poppins, and then getting rid of the padding and the margin on the body. To follow along with this project, I do expect you to know some basics of React, because we are using some React hooks, and I just want you to know some basics of GSAP. Last thing I wanted to mention was the images folder. We just have our images and WebP format. We aren't going to production, that's why we're using WebP. And even if we are going to production, you can still use a WebP format. Just make sure you have a fallback, because I believe some browsers do not support WebP yet. I think one of them, mainly Safari. I don't know about the other ones. Now let's go ahead and open up our header.js and get started. So this project is going to take some time. And I think I'm going to break it up into 2, maybe 3 videos, but the first portion, what we're going to do is just set up the JSX and then style it. So we'll do JSX for header and hamburger, and then we'll worry about stylings. And then I guess in the second part is when we start incorporating all the animations. Now in our header.js, let's go ahead and inside the header tags, let's create a div for container. Inside the container div, we are going to add a wrapper div. And inside the wrapper, we are going to do an inner-header. And inside that one, we are going to do logo. So go ahead and do logo div. And then finally, we are going to add a link. And this link comes from React Router. and we're going to set this to Hamburg, which is our agency that we just made. And this is going to the home directory. Now we do have an error because the link is not defined, and to define link, we just need to import it from React Router DOM. Go ahead and save that, and from there we can move on to the rest of the JSX. Outside of the logo, but still inside the inner header, we're going to do a div with the class name of menu, and inside that menu, we're going to add a button. Now this button will just say menu, and then we can go ahead and save that. If we preview our project, we can see we have Hamburg, and then we have menu. Menu doesn't do anything yet, but if we switch over to solutions, we'll still have the same header because we are importing this in our app.js. To break it down a little better, if we go to our app.js file, we are first importing header, and then underneath header is the container, which renders out all of our routes. So you can see headers up here, and then the container with the home class is rendering all of our routes. And if we click the Hamburg logo, it's going to take us back home. That's just basic React Router stuff, but that's not what we're here for. What we're here for is to build that exciting menu. Now let's go ahead and jump back into the code. We can exit out of app.js and open up hamburger.js. In hamburger.js, we can get rid of this menu right here. And for the first class, what we're going to call the class name is just hamburger-menu. And inside the hamburger menu, we are going to create another div. And this div will have a longer class name. So the class name is menu secondary background color. Now we're going to leave this long class name div, the menu secondary background color, alone, and underneath that we are going to add another div, and this div will have a class name of menu layer, and then all of our other divs are going to be nested inside this menu layer. Now as we go, I do want to describe what each div, or what I'm envisioning each div is going to do. So I am going to open up the project that's completed, and that one is on my localhost 3000. And if we select that, we have the final project, but we're focusing with the 3001. I'll be referencing this just so that I could explain what I am coding out. Now, the thing that I was talking about was this div right here, the menu secondary background color. What this menu secondary background color is going to represent is the black color that's coming in right behind the menu. So it's creating a nicer effect, and that's what the menu secondary background color is. So just keep an eye on that. Let's go back into our 3000 and let's close out our final project. We can continue on with the JSX, and in here we can create another div with the class name of menu-city background. And this menu-city background was when we hover on our cities or locations, it's going to change the background to the corresponding city, such as Austin or Dallas or San Francisco. Now outside of the menu city background div, while still being inside the menu layer, we are going to add a container, and inside that container we're adding a wrapper. Now inside that wrapper we are adding a class name of menu links. Now inside of this menu links div, this is going to represent the 3 links that we have inside our hamburger menu. So first we're going to add a nav tag. Inside the nav tag is going to be an unordered list. And then in here we will add a list item. Why is it not letting me do that? Okay, there we go, a list item. And inside this list item, here's where we're going to use link again. And link is our navigation tag for React Router. And inside the first link, we're going to say opportunities. Now for the to attribute, we are going to the opportunities page. We can then copy and paste our list item or list tag 2 more times and then just change them to the other links. The second link we had was solutions, and we can change the directory to solutions. Oop, that's not doing it. What's going on? Solutions. And then the last one was contact us. So it's going to be contact us, and it's going to the contact-us directory. Now we are getting that errors because link is not imported, and let's go ahead and import that. I need to find a package that will let me auto import. I think that would be really cool. I had it, I want to say a few months ago on my other computer, but I don't know what happened. I can't find it. Cool, so we've got that set there. To make sure the links are working, what I want to do is I want to import hamburger.js into header.js. And what we can do in here is just try to import hamburger from hamburger. And then outside of our div container, we can just put the hamburger tag here, self-closing tag, and save that. In our project, if we go to solutions, it'll take us to the solution page, contact takes us to the contact page, opportunities to the opportunities page. That's cool. So this right here is our hamburger menu, that red background, and this is our header. It's just not styled yet, and it looks really ugly. So don't mind it just yet. Back in our hamburger.js, let's continue on with the JSX. And outside of our nav tags, while still being inside the menu links class, we are adding another div with the class name of info. And inside the info class, we're adding an h3, and the h3 is going to say our promise. And then underneath the h3, we are adding a p tag, and we'll just add some lorem ipsum text. Go ahead and find your favorite lorem ipsum. I'm going to copy this paragraph, close that out, and then just drop that in there. Save it, and let's go back. Now that's going to do it for our info div, and outside the info div, we're going to create another div with the class name of locations, and this will list out the locations that we had. Right now, I'll just list them out one by one, but once we add the interactivity to these, I am going to put the locations in an array and then just map them so that we could list them out inside this div. So it's just going to be locations here, and then each one's going to have a span tag. And inside the span tag, we'll just list the cities. So first one was Dallas. Let's just copy, paste this, paste this, paste this, paste this, paste this. Then it was Austin. Then it was, what was it? New York? I don't know, we'll figure it out later. New York, San Francisco, and then I think it was Beijing. Let me check the order. I mean, I have the project running in the background. So open up the menu. Dallas, Austin, New York, San Francisco, Beijing. Okay, we don't need the last one right here. Did I spell Beijing correctly? Yes, cool. So let's save that. We can close out of our localhost 3000. We don't need that anymore. And we've got our JSX pretty much there. Let's go ahead and work on styling. And to do that, all we need to do is jump into our app.scss. Do we have anything in our index? Okay, good. And inside our app.sass file, we can start writing out the styles that we need. So I like to first start with the container because we need to define that. So the container is going to have a width of 1280 pixels with the min width of 1280 pixels. The margin, okay, not an M. The margin is going to be 0 auto. And that's going to do it for our container. This isn't going to be responsive. I encourage you to make it responsive and then get back to me. It's way too time consuming to put that in account with me trying to get the point across on animations. So the container is done. We could then go into our wrapper, which is always nested inside of our container, and add a padding of 0 and 48 pixels left and right. Next, inside our wrapper, we can go into home. And in our home, we're adding a display of flex, a justified content of center. Align items is going to be not flex start, but center. And then the height and width is going to be 100%. And let's just take a quick second here. I do want to say, if you've enjoyed this video so far, go ahead and leave that like. If you've enjoyed any of my other videos, please subscribe because I am going to release more content like this. I am trying to do my best to bring you high quality content. It just takes a lot of time, and maybe sometime in the future I will be doing larger courses in terms of UI and coding. So with that plug out of the way, let's go ahead and get back to our project. Inside the home, we have a p tag, and the font size for our p tag, not font style, but font size. Can I do that? Yeah, font size is going to be 0.75 rem. And what I'm styling here is the pages p tag. So in our app.js, we have p tags right here. And so this is pretty much what I'm styling, just a container for now. Let's go back into our app.sass and continue on. So the font size is 0.75 rem. The letter spacing is 0.03 rem. The letter spacing is 0.3 rem. And the text dash transform is going to be set to uppercase. Next, we are setting the font weight to 500. Now outside of the p tag, we are going to work on an h5 tag, and that h5 tag is on our home page. The margin top for this H5 is going to be 260 pixels. The font size is set to, let me see, what's short for font size? If I go FOS, yeah. Font size, that's going to be set to 1.8 rem. The font weight is set to 600, just to get a bit bolder. And then the padding right, let's do the padding right set to 360 pixels. Let's save that and let's preview what we have so far. We've got this going for us. This is really huge. Why is this so big? Let's do 1.5 instead so we can get it a little smaller. But yeah, still looking messy. The menu up here is taking up all the space, but if we switch to solutions, we get the p tag styles. Console, we get the p tag styles, and then the home page is when we have this H5 for the styles. Let's go back into our project, and it's getting hot as hell in here. Hang on, let me take off my jacket. Okay. Now that we've finished how the pages are going to look, we can kind of get outside of this here, and we can then work on our header. So let's just comment a header there. We are going to create a header tag and set the height to our header 100 pixels. And then the inner header, that is set to a position relative, a z index of 10. And one thing I wanted to know, z indexes do not work unless you define a position. So if you don't define a position relative, absolute, or fixed, z indexes won't work because they don't know where they fit onto the page. So always when using z indexes, make sure you define what position you want it to be. Next, our height's going to be the same as our header since it's nested inside. So let's just put the height to 100 pixels, or it could be 100%. Then it's going to be display, not inline, but flex. Justify content is space between, and we're aligning the items to center. And the items we're aligning is the logo and the hamburger menu. So let's go ahead and jump into the logo class, specifically the A tag, and style the logo. So the logo is going to have a font weight of 700. Let's do text decoration set to none. And the color is the color black, but it's not just the black color 000, but it's the 191919. So it's the variable black that we have defined all the way up here. Let's scroll down and save this. And outside the logo with the class name, we can then style the .menu or the menu class. And the menu class has a button nested inside of that. So let's style our button. We're setting the border to none. We're setting the background to none. Outline to none. The cursor, we're setting that to a pointer cursor. Font size 0.8 rem. And the color, we're making the color black. That's cool. Let's save that then. And now outside of our inner header, while still being inside our header, we can then define the hamburger menu or navigation. It's not how you spell navigation. Navigation? Yeah, I guess. Whatever. Yeah, so let's define that. So the hamburger menu is going to be set to display none at first. So let's just do that and preview our project so far. We can see it looks exactly how we want it. The menu doesn't work yet, which is fine, but if we switch between our pages, so if we go to the solutions, the menu's still working and it's still up there. If we go back home, everything is working, which is great. This is where we start defining the styles for our hamburger menu. Now we want to see what's going on, so let's just comment out the display none, and it's going to look really janky, but that's fine. We are setting the z index to 9 because we still want the header to show when our hamburger menu is open. So set z index to 9. The top is 0, bottom 0, the left is 0, and the right is 0 as well. The position is going to be a position of fixed, and the height is 100% as well as the width. Now inside our hamburger menu, we have another div, which is the menu secondary background color. Now the menu secondary background color is going to be the exact same thing as our hamburger menu, except a few things are different. So let's copy everything from top to the width and set it here. We are adding a background color to this one though. And the background color we're adding was the black background. And the z index on this one is going to be -1. Since it's going to be behind, remember that black background that comes just before the entire menu? This is it right here. Now outside of the menu secondary background color, we are going to bring in a menu-layer class. And our menu layer class is going to have a position of relative. The background color for this one is going to be set to red. The height is 100% and overflow is hidden. Now what overflow hidden does, it kind of allows us to create a mask. So if we open up the localhost 3000, which is our final project, you can see we aren't going to see any of the navigation links or anything until the menu is sort of sliding down. So as it's sliding down, everything is appearing. And that is because of our overflow hidden. So it's kind of like a mask and it gives off a really nice effect. Rather than not having it on, it sort of creates like a messy look to where everything just kind of comes in and the navigation sort of appears while the menu is wiping down or giving you that wipe effect. So this just makes it a lot cleaner. Let's close our final project and get back to the code. Now inside the menu layer, we are going to have the menu city background. So let's do that. And this one has a lot of things to it. So let's bear through. So we got top, actually we can just copy all this. Top, bottom, left, right. It's going to all be 0. The position is not relative, but absolute. The height is 100%. And the width is 100%. And now we'll set the opacity to 0. Now this does have an animation, and the animation that it has was sort of that camera panning around the image. So in Dallas, we can see the camera just moving around. But we aren't going to add that just yet. We are going to wait until the project is sort of designed out, and then we'll add that animation towards the end. And now it's just really slow. Why is it slow? Okay, now it's moving. So it just moves around, which is a pretty cool effect. Let's close that. And we'll, like I said, we'll worry about that later. Outside of our menu city background, but still being in the menu layer, we are going to add a wrapper class. And since we've already defined the wrapper class up there, all we're adding here is just a position relative. Now inside the wrapper class, we're adding the menu links, and we'll set the display not to inline, but flex. Justify content is space between. We're going to align the items to center. Position is going to be relative, and the top is 200 pixels. Inside the menu links, we can add our nav tag. So the nav tag is going to have a display block. Our unordered list will have a padding of 0 and a margin of 0. Our list items will have a list style of none. Not list style type, but list style. Set that to none. The font size is going to be 6 rem with the font weight set to 700. We're going to make the cursor pointer height, set that to 135 pixels with overflow hidden. And we talked about overflow hidden earlier, and it's going to give us that mask look, which is pretty cool. So set the position to relative on this one. And we will then set the width to 700 pixels. Inside our list tag, we are going to add the A tag, and this A tag does represent the links. So the links is going to have an absolute position. So position absolute with the color set to white. So we can just add FFF since we don't have the color white defined. And the text decoration is none. Next, we can add a hover. The hover is just going to change the colors to black. Save that. And we are done with our links. Outside of our nav tag, but still being in our menu links, we are adding an info class. And inside the info class, let's set the color to white with the width set to 300 pixels. And inside that, we can do an H3, and the H3 is going to have a font size of 1.2 rem. And the margin on this H3 is going to be a margin of top and bottom of 8 pixels, and then auto for left and right. Outside the H3, let's go ahead and add a P tag. And the P tag is going to have a margin of 0 auto. And the font size, let's go ahead and put the font size to 0.8 rem. Now outside of the info and the menu links, so let's find that. We are setting the locations class. And the locations class is going to have an absolute position with the bottom set to -80 pixels. The color is going to be white. The margin top is set to 16 pixels. And the font size is 0.8 rem with the font weight set to 600. Next, our nested span is going to have a cursor of pointer. And then we're setting a margin of 0 and 32 pixels. And 32 pixels are going to be left and right. Next, we're adding a transition. And this is for when we hover. So the transition is going to be 0.3 seconds. And then we'll just add an ease in, ease out. Or ease in, out. One thing I do want to add in our span tag is the first child needs to be pushed a little more. Since we are adding a left and right, they're sort of having a space between each other of 64 pixels. So the first child is going to need to have a margin left of 64 pixels. So let's go ahead and do that. I can't spell first child, damn it. First child, and it's going to have a margin left of 64. Now we're adding a hover, so go ahead and add an ampersand of hover. And the hover effect we're making is just turning the background to a background color of black. So go ahead and set that. We're adding a padding of 8 pixels and 24 pixels. And then also adding a border radius of 4 pixels. Now I could add the padding of the border radius already in the span tag, but when we want it to hover, we sort of want that all to happen. And so it gives it a cooler effect, and you'll see why here in a sec. Let's go ahead and save this and preview our project. Okay, so everything seems to work and look right, which is good. It's just, we have no functionality. We just have the look of it. Yeah, I mean, everything works. Everything is just like how we want it. If we open up the localhost 3000 and preview the final project, jumping it back and forth, one thing to note is in our final project, the font weight is set to 400. So let's do that for our span and save that. And this will make it not bold. Now let's close out our final project. And if we add a display none to our hamburger menu, uncomment this, we'll go back to here. So when this is clicked, the menu is clicked, we're switching this to this and adding all the animations that we need for it to happen. All right, so this is going to do it for the first video. Go ahead and find me on the next video where we'll start adding animations.